In today's presentation, we're going to talk about how to teach your body to burn fat more effectively by Dr. Jeff Banas. So why would we want to teach our body to burn fat more effectively? Well, first of all, it sounds a little bit silly, I know, because when we talk about burning fat, everybody's thinking about weight loss. Obviously, we want to teach our body to be effective at burning fat so we could drop body fat. But we're going to talk about a little bit more in this presentation is burning fat for energy. It applies to weight loss also, but we're also going to talk a little bit more about energy. Okay? So why would we want to burn more fat as related to energy? Well, if your body's not burning fat effectively, that means your body is not getting the calories it needs, the calories for training, the calories for racing. And if you're not getting your calories from your own fat, that means you have to eat more because you're not getting the calories provided by your own body. So, and if we could teach your body to use its own fat stores more effectively, those would provide the calories that you need for your training. And again, if you're not burning calories from your own fat, you need to take that in from some outside source. So what are the goals of teaching your body to burn fat? Well, burning more fat, we want to conserve the carbohydrate stores while reducing the likelihood of gastrointestinal stress. So basically our carbohydrate stores are limited, okay? When you're doing a long distance race, you're going to burn through those carbohydrate stores. So if we could teach your body to burn fat more effectively, you will get some energy from your body's fat and preserve the carbohydrate stores. And we all know that the more you eat when you're out there on race day, the more chance you have of getting upset stomach or gastrointestinal distress because of your eating. And if you could teach your body to burn fat more effectively, that means you'll get more calories from your own body's fat, and you'll have to take in less outside calories. So another goal is we want to teach your body to burn fat at a wide ranges of intensities or heart rate zones. So a lot of people are burning fat maybe at a low heart rate zone, maybe a zone 1, but they move up to zone 2, 3, 4 or whatever, and they really get outside of their fat zones. So at higher heart rates, we would like our body to burn fat. And there's ways we could do this. And we'll talk about this a little bit later in this presentation. So when we're talking about long distance events, we're talking about endurance, which basically means we're talking about slow twitch muscle fibers, which equal fat. So now our carbohydrate stores are limited, like we mentioned. You only have so much carbohydrate stores within your body. And if you're going out at a longer distance or hours, you're going to run out of that. And your body's most efficient source of energy is fat. So we want to use that fat to supply our body's energy. Another reason we want to burn fat is because there's more calories in fat. For every 1 gram of fat, there's 9 calories. Carbohydrate, there's 4. So if we could, again, teach our body to burn fat as the primary source, we're basically getting double the calories that we would be taking if we were taking it from an outside carbohydrate source. So just 1 pound of stored fat can provide about 3,600 calories of energy, which is far more than most people could burn in a single day. So we really want to turn your body into a carbohydrate sparing and a fat burning machine. So how do you turn yourself into a carbohydrate sparing or a fat burning machine? We basically going to do it by 2 ways. We're doing training in your fat burning zone and nutritional strategies. So how do we find your fat burning zones? Okay, we could do a field test or we could do a VO2 metabolic test. So the field test basically is right here. Is what we're going to do is to find your fat burning zone. Basically what we'd like you to do is warm up on a bike for about 10 minutes, and then you're going to pedal at your maximum sustainable pace for about 20 minutes. You should be pretty burned. This should be pretty maximum all-out effort. You're going to basically record your heart rate averaged in those 20 minutes using some type of heart rate monitor, and then you're going to subtract the 20 beats from the heart rate and subtract 3 beats resulting to get your range. So for example, if you basically did it for 20 minutes, your heart rate was an average of 160. We would take 160 minus the 20 is 140, and a plus 3. So we basically end up a 140 minus 3, and we get our 137 to 143 beats per minute is our fat burning range. So you can just read through this, and ideally you'd also want to do this for running, cycling, and even swimming, because you are using a little bit of different muscles on each of those events. Now, metabolic testing is basically the gold standard, and we call this a VO2 metabolic test. Now, when you do a VO2 metabolic test, you are getting your VO2 max. However, it also gives us your fat burning zone, and it will let us know where your body is burning that more fat. So when we're doing a VO2 metabolic test, we're looking for a respiration quotient, or RQ. And it's basically just a ratio of carbon dioxide to oxygen. A high RQ just means you're burning more carbohydrates than fat. Okay, now if you have a high RQ, that just means you're more likely overweight, but that just also means that your body is not very efficient at burning fat. Now, a low RQ is related to a higher fat burning. However, you could be very skinny and not efficient at burning fat. And it's possible also to be overweight and fairly efficient at burning fat. And that's just because nutrition will win over exercise all the time. So you could train your body to be fat and still be overweight, as long as you're eating, foods that cause you to gain weight. And I've had many patients that come in that are very lean and skinny and are not very efficient at burning fat, and that's just basically because they have not spent the time nutrition-wise or training-wise to teach your body to be more effective at burning the fat. So this is the VO2 metabolic test. This is from the New Leaf. This is what we run in my office. And once you see this, it starts making a little bit more sense to everybody. So when we do this VO2 metabolic test, I'm sure everybody has seen some type of VO2 metabolic test. We basically are hooking you to a mask, and we're measuring that RQ, or we're measuring a ratio of carbon dioxide that you're kicking out to oxygen that you're taking in. And then we either increase the tension on the bike trainer or the treadmill to raise heart rate. And what we get in this area right up in here, this is RQ, but what we want to do mostly is look at this graph. And what this graph is, this green line here is associated with heart rate. So this means we were, with this person here, we had them on, let's say, the treadmill, and we increased the treadmill up and the incline up and raised their heart rate. What we see right here is how much fat they're burning, okay, how much fat. And so you can see they're burning a lot of fat through here. So what that means is that's that RQ of around the 0.7 to 0.85. And now you see them going out here, and you see this fat burning dramatically coming down right here. So if this person is right up in here, let's say this point right here, and see it relates to about 160. So this person right here, running at a heart rate of 160, is actually burning very little fat, because you see it down here. Now, as we mentioned, if you're exercising at this level, your carbohydrate stores are limited. So if you're running at this level right here, what's going to happen? You're going to bonk if you're going off too long, because you're going to run out of the energy. I actually did a test on a patient who's doing the Ironman Triathlon here in about 90 days. And when we did his test, he was similar to this. So he showed right up in here that he was burning a lot of fat, like around the 120, like right up in here. However, when we talked, he said he's cycling and he's running here to 150s, just like this person here. Now, if he's doing Ironman Triathlon, and you're running at a heart rate right here, burning very little fat, if he doesn't eat, he's going to bonk, because he does not have that energy. His body is not efficient of using his own fat stores as the primary source of fuel. Now, when he's only 90 days out of this thing, what he needs to do is he knows he needs to plan some type of nutritional strategy so he can get the calories, because he's not going to get them all from fat when he's like this. And one of the goals of this fat burning is to cause this line to shift over. So on this person, we would see right here, they're over here, and they're burning very little fat. So right here, they're burning very little fat. With training and nutrition, we would like this to spread out all the way over here. So you redo this test, and we see this line go all the way over here like this, and then shift down. You're always going to have a point where you reach your threshold that you end up dropping and stop fat burning. But the goal is to get that as close as possible with the fat. Now we see a lot of people training here, and this is that chronic cardio. They're really not, if they're training at this area here as that chronic cardio, they're not training slow enough to really get the benefits of fat burning, but they're not really training hard enough to get the benefits of the really high intensity training. So nutrition, okay, like we said, we're going to do this through nutrition and training. Well, ideally what you can do is follow a ketogenic diet, maybe 4 to 5 days a week. On training days where you're going to go for your longer rides or runs, we could increase the carbs a little bit more. So an example of a ketogenic diet I have right here. I'm not going to go through and just read all this back to you, but basically ketogenic diet, we want you, basically it's a little bit higher fat, low carb, and moderate protein. And on the next slide, I have another example of some ketogenic diet. Now for the nutrition, if you go to bengreenfieldfitness.com and look up the Superhuman Food Pyramid, it's a free download, and that's going to give you your food pyramid of approved food list. And like I mentioned, you want to do some calorie cycling. So we might want to go through 100 grams. We want to limit our body to about 100 grams is a goal for the regular days. Now, this ketogenic diet works with a higher fat only if we're able to maintain about 100 grams of carbs. Now remember, if you take in too many carbs, your body has no reason to burn fat because it will use that carb as the primary source of fuel. So as we wanted to mention, we do the calorie cycling. So for most of the time during the week, focus on 100 grams of carbs and use the carbs that are from the Ben Greenfield Superhuman Food Pyramid. On days you're going to increase your higher intensity or longer workouts, you could take in a few more carbohydrates. Now remember, protein could get turned into sugar, okay? So we don't want to go too crazy on the protein. So how much protein? About 0.55 grams per pound of body fat to maintain is a good place to start. If you're actually in a building phase and you want to build strength, we might want to be up around the 0.7 grams per pound. But we'll talk about this a little bit more in some of our strength training, nutrition, and presentation. But that gives you kind of a baseline where you want to be with the protein. Now, nutrition during the training, okay? So how do we eat to teach our body to burn fat and train at the same time? If you're doing like zone 1 or zone 2 training, or the training's less than 2 hours, you really don't need any food. You really don't need a pre-nutrition shake. You really don't need a post-recovery shake. You really don't need any goos or gels. Just water is fine. If you're going a little zone 3 plus, maybe 2 to 3 hours plus, maybe 400 to 600 calories of carbohydrates before you work out would be okay. You really want to experiment with this and practice this during training. So during long, hard training sessions or events, you might want to focus on maybe 250 calories an hour, work your way up from there. Post-recovery, exercise, recovery drinks, do you really need them? You really don't. The only time you'd really need a post-recovery shake is if you did a couple hours of training and then later that same day you plan on doing a couple more hours of the training. So really forget about that type of stuff. Practice your nutrition during your training, okay? If you're training and you feel bloated, you want to back off on nutrition a little bit. If you're training and you're feeling really tired and hungry after long training sessions, you might want to increase your nutrition a little. So what about supplements or other ideas for weight loss? Since we're talking about fat and teaching your body to be more efficient burning fat as a primary school, I know there were people thinking about this other stuff related to weight loss. We're going to cover more specific weight loss in a few other podcasts. So there are many other things you could be doing for weight loss as far as nutrition and different training intensities and intervals. So I know we mentioned back there about ways to determine where your fat burning zones are as far as your training. And then we get the question of, well, how often do we need to train in your fat zones, and how do we relate that to our training? And honestly, it's basically now, it depends. There's no exact answer. The problem is how often you train in that fat zone that we determine by the VO2 metabolic test or that field test really depends on a lot of factors. And that's why it's best to work with a coach on that. I will have many times patients will come in to see me and they say, all I want to do is see where my body's burning fat. I don't need any help with developing a training program or workouts or anything whatsoever. So we run that VO2 metabolic test, and then we print out where the body is burning the fat, and then they sit there and go, okay, now what? Because many times where your body is burning fat back on that graph is not necessarily at the same intensity where your body is, we're at the same intensity where you're actually working out. So if we get back to this graph, you see lots of times people will come in and they say, well, I'm running at a heart rate of 160, but here it's showing me my fat burning maybe should be like in the 130s. And then they say, well, if I have to keep my heart rate to 130, I'm running a 15-minute mile and I want to run a 8-minute mile over here. But if I run an 8-minute mile, I'm over here. And that's why I say it depends on how much time you need to do this. For my patient who is doing Ironman in 100 days right after we do this test, he can't really spend a lot of time doing really slow stuff because he obviously wants to finish the Ironman. But that same thing, if he does a lot of higher intensity here, he's not burning fat. So that's what I mean. It depends on many things. So how often do you depend? Well, what are you burning? If you do that, when we did that test, at what heart rate are you burning carbs, proteins, or fat? What's your ideal weight? Do you need to drop weight? Like I said, how long are you a season? Are you a year out of Ironman, or are you a month out of Ironman? So that's where the experience of laying out a program with you and your coach, it's best to work with one of your coaches or your superhuman coach. Now, if you have any questions on this, post on the website in the comment sections, and I'll do my best to answer as fast as I can. You can always drop me an email or a phone call. If you want any information about my coaching or any of this question, you can check out my website. So feel free to post your comments on the post here, and I'll be happy to answer them as best I can. Thank you.